To all the people criticizing the Buffalo Soldiers, let me ask you a question. If the Cherokee did not free their last black slave, they had black slaves. If they did not free their last black slaves until really 1866, and the Buffalo Soldiers were formed in 1866, and the Buffalo Soldiers were black men who would have been aware that even after 1866, there were tribes who kept us in chains, like Chickasaw. If all that happened, do you not think that played a role as to why the Buffalo Soldiers agreed to go ahead and slaughter the freaking natives? Put yourself back then at that time. You're hearing they're not going to free you, even though the 13th Amendment has already been passed. And that was the 5 civilized tribes. All of them. Even tribes like the freaking Comanche, a lot of them. Comanche, one of the main tribes they encountered. Do you think that played a role? I'm just asking. Do you think that played a role whatsoever? Yes or no? Yes or no?
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. In case you're new here, my name is Maren.
And I'm Maureen. So in today's episode, I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard of the term Buffalo Soldiers, yeah?
Right.
The first time we heard of this term was from a Bob Marley song, if I'm not wrong, and it used to go, Buffalo Soldier, ta-da-da-da, that song, right? So, better part of this week, Beyonce has been trending for wearing a t-shirt of the Buffalo Soldiers while she was on a tour on the Juneteenth festival, right?
Right. And her wearing this shirt caused a lot of controversy. And what we can say is it brought about a lot of discussions amongst people who agreed with her and those who disagreed with her. Yeah? According to people, people have different views, but according to people on the internet, while some were supporting her because they felt like she was representing a very important part of the black history, some of them also were against her actions because they were feeling like Beyonce was disrespecting the Native Americans
by supporting a genocidal
group.
Right.
And we ask ourselves before we go on, who are these? What's the meaning of Buffalo Soldiers?
Because before this episode, as we knew Buffalo Soldiers as a song, just a song from a Bob Marley,
right? And for us, some of these songs could represent history. Some of it could be just entertainment.
But today we get to learn what Buffalo Soldiers actually meant and what role they played in the American history, Black and Native American history.
And this is very, very important because we have a lot of Black American audience and other Black people from other parts. So I feel like today we're all going to learn, because I do believe even the people who the history belongs to, not everybody usually understands the whole history, the whole scope.
Right. And as we do this, guys, we have one important question for you, right? So how many of you think that Beyonce was wrong and how many of you think that she was on the right? Because this has brought quite a divide in the Black American community. Of course, in the internet.
Not just Black American community, Black American and the natives.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, let's watch and then we come back and talk about it. You can let us know your thoughts and opinion on the comment section. Also consider subscribing if it's your first time here. Let's watch.
So the Buffalo Soldier shirt that Beyonce was wearing has had indigenous people asking people, rightfully so, to educate themselves on who the Buffalo Soldiers were, their role in the colonial expansion west, in wiping out Native Americans, even massacring Native Americans in some cases, and taking away Native American land. So I've been educating myself, and you know what I found out? So this isn't talked about often, but we know that many Native Americans enslaved Black people in this country. And the 5 tribes profited off slavery so much so that they fought for the Confederacy to keep slavery alive on Native land. And so when the Civil War ended and the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and slaves were supposed to be immediately free as of 1863, you know what? Slavery did not end for Black people on Native American lands until 1866. Yes, we talk about Juneteenth and how slaves in Texas were not told they were free until 2 years after slavery. Native Americans did not free their slaves until 1866, 3 years after they were supposed to be free. But because those tribes were sovereign to the United States, they didn't have to free their slaves, and didn't. And it wasn't until the treaties of 1866 that they freed their slaves. And once slavery ended on Native land, it's not like, oh, kumbaya, cool. You know, they were often denied rights, denied humanity, kicked off the land for not being indigenous, etc., and had to go find some other place to live, like fucking where. And while there were Native American tribes who were against slavery and who even safe harbored runaway slaves, I don't think we can talk about the role the Buffalo Soldiers played in the colonial expansion west and the erasure of Native Americans without also talking about the role Native Americans had in enslaving Black people and the treatment of Black people in this country.
Bruh, Beyonce supporting genociders just because they are Black? I wish I could say I was surprised. I'm gonna need all the motherfuckers who said Beyonce's American propaganda was subversive to come to the front, because y'all looking really dumb right now. She released a statement in support of the Buffalo Soldiers, who were Black soldiers that were named Buffalo Soldiers after Native Americans who they hunted. She even had the audacity to release a statement calling Native Americans enemies of peace, order, and settlement, also fighting off Mexican revolutionaries. This is American imperialist and settler colonial propaganda in blackface. Mexican revolutionaries, just as those ICE raids was happening, and the day after we go to war with Iran. I need y'all to be wake the fuck up. I just made a video about how America wants Black people to be patriots so they'll fight and die for this country, and this shit just came out. The sad part is a lot of Black Americans are gonna eat this shit up and defend her anyways, because her stands for Beyonce and they're too tied to Black identity that they can't even see that they're working against it. Service of white supremacy. Golly.
If you're mad about the quote on the back of Beyonce's t-shirt, then you clearly failed her masterclass. Seriously, let's unpack this for a minute. When Beyonce drops a message, it's rarely just surface level. It's a curated statement, often stepped into history, feminist thought, or Black liberation movements. Think about it. She's an artist who constantly uses her platform to educate and empower. Her work, from Lemonade to Renaissance, isn't just about catchy beats. It's a deep dive into reclaiming narratives, celebrating identity, and challenging societal norms. So, if a quote on a t-shirt triggers frustration, it might be because you're missing the historical context or the powerful intent behind the words. It's not just fashion, it's a statement. It's a nod to legacies and a call to critical thought. To be truly information, you have to do your homework. Her masterclass requires understanding of roots of empowerment, resilience, and unapologetically self-expression. So before you react, ask yourself, what's the real lesson behind thought here? And have you truly listened?
I love Beyonce down just as much as the next person, y'all. I really do. And as a Black and Native woman, one who is getting her master's in Indigenous law, I believe I'm qualified to speak on this topic, and provide some education. Before I even get into this, I do want to acknowledge that the history of the Buffalo Soldiers, very complex, very complicated. This is actually very interesting because I just got done really deep diving into the Civil War era of Indigenous law and federal Indian policy. Basically, Buffalo Soldiers did play a big part in enforcing colonial westward expansion. And while on one hand there was an opportunity for Black Americans to find a little bit more stability by pursuing the military and all this, they were given an opportunity to survive in white supremacist society, but at what cost? Because this came at the direct expense of Indigenous sovereignty and lives. It's just really sick because they were forced to remove Indigenous people off their ancestral lands and force them onto reservations. So in the end, both Black and Native people are really victims of US settler colonialism. So then for Beyonce to go and enforce that Indigenous people are the enemies in westward expansion and US colonialism, like, girl, I thought we were for the people. I thought we were for liberation. And I do think there was an opportunity where it could have been done for her to just, represent the Buffalo Soldiers, because obviously that was the path for Black Americans at the time. But to double down and say Indigenous people were antagonists is really just pitting two people against each other. And I'm also confused because I know Beyonce has deep roots to New Orleans, Louisiana. I think she had her wedding there or something. And that has a deep, rich history of Indigenous and Black solidarity. So for her to pit these two, peoples of oppression against each other is truly so sad. And I just feel like your fave icon wouldn't do that. Your fave icon who's looking to change the world in a positive light wouldn't put oppressed people against each other. So I don't know why she did that. And I feel like at her level, things are very intentional. So it's just a little bit scary. And, I was a base stan, but I don't know how to feel about this. So if there is anything I can ask, Beyonce, please do better. I do want people to be educated. You know, it's really us against them in this larger battle of oppression and, you know, colonization that's still ongoing. And it looks like Beyonce's just trying to be on the side of the oppressors. And I guess from all this, I would just want to ask Beyonce why? Why promote this message? Why have that writing on your back? And maybe she doesn't care. She's not for the people. Maybe I just need to accept that. Sad. I mean, you know what they say. Never meet your idols.
African-American military men, known as Buffalo Soldiers, played a significant role in the story of the American frontier and United States Western expansion. These men filled the ranks of two black regiments, the 9th and 10th Cavalries. Black soldiers forming the 24th and 25th Infantries were also sometimes called Buffalo Soldiers. The black cavalry and infantry regiments were authorized by an 1866 law, which required them to be under the leadership of white officers. The regiments were based primarily on the frontier in the states and territories of the Plains and the Southwest. The regiment's main objectives were to protect travel routes and to control American Indian populations. In 30 years of service on the frontier, Buffalo Soldiers were involved in almost 200 major and minor engagements. The Buffalo Soldiers exhibited great courage and discipline, and their regiments had the lowest percentage of desertion and court-martial among the U.S. Army. The men of these regiments received their Buffalo Soldier nickname from the Plains Indians. There are many theories about its meaning, but it is generally believed to have been a sign of respect, as Native Americans revered the buffalo, and the Buffalo Soldiers had proven themselves to be worthy opponents. Buffalo Soldiers also played a strong role in another fixture of the frontier, the National Park System. Buffalo Soldiers served as some of the first park rangers in the western United States. At the end of the 1800s and beginning of the 1900s, the U.S. Army was the official administrator of national parks such as Yosemite and Sequoia. About 500 Buffalo Soldiers were stationed in these two parks during this time. They brought law and order to the wilderness lands, protecting the park's animals and trees from thieves and forest fires. Throughout their tenure, Buffalo Soldiers also participated in the Spanish-American War, the Philippine-American War, and the 1916 Army expedition to capture Mexican revolutionary Pancho Villa.
So guys, welcome back. Let us know what you think about the videos you just played in the comment section.
Right.
Also consider subscribing, yeah, if it's your first time here. Road to 200,000 subscribers.
Ooh.
Yeah. So I asked Google the meaning of Buffalo Soldiers. Yeah, who are the Buffalo Soldiers? And Google says the Buffalo Soldiers were African American soldiers, primarily in the 19th and 10th Cavalry Regiments and the 25th and 24th Infantry Regiments formed after the Civil War. They earned their nickname from the Native American tribe, likely due to their fighting spirit and curly hair, which resembled the buffalo. These regiments served on the western frontier, performing various duties including protecting settlements, building infrastructures, and fighting in numerous engagements.
And I also asked Google why the Buffalo Soldiers had a problem with the Native Americans, right? And Google said because they were a part of the U.S. that were tasked with enforcing government policies.
U.S. Army.
Yes, the U.S. Army that were tasked with enforcing government policies and protecting westward expansion, you know. So here it also says that it was not their choice to be involved in this war, but they were following commands, right? And I've also seen, because guys, we're usually told that yes, you might find information in the internet, but not all of it is usually true. It can be right.
Not true, but
okay,
accurate.
it is true, but it might not be accurate, you know. And most times you're often told that sometimes history is whitewashed according to the colonizer or whoever's, the white people's way of seeing things, right? So on the internet, we kept hearing some Black Americans say that the Buffalo Soldiers were fighting with Native Americans because in some areas in America, Native Americans also owned slaves, and they didn't let go of their slaves even after slavery ended.
And I feel like that was a very bad thing. I can't imagine. I mean, I didn't even know Native Americans used to own black slaves, you know.
Truth to God,
So
we didn't know they used to own black slaves.
If you own a person, that speaks a lot on your character and how your society treats a different type of person, you know. And so, being that history is there, all these groups, I can say, were oppressed, you know.
Right, and they all had a common enemy, but they were divided. They couldn't see the common enemy, you know, because the same person who was sending the black Americans to go and, the Buffalo Soldiers to go and fight the Native Americans are the very same people who are oppressing the black Americans and at the same time taking land from the Native Americans. You get what I'm saying?
Right. And you know what I find interesting, now that you've mentioned that is, guys, can you imagine, I'm asking myself, why did they need the Buffalo Soldiers to go and fight their war against the Native Americans? Because I do believe if you're a native to a land, you know how to defend your land, and you're very, very strong in that environment, you know, like what was happening in Africa. Countries like Ethiopia never got colonized because the terrain, only the Ethiopians knew and
how to defend
their lands, and the white colonizers were dying off like flies, you know.
Right, and in that same breath, it also reminded me of a brother here who said, right now they're trying to entice black Americans to go and fight a war that is not necessarily theirs. So I do feel like when in times of trouble or when this type of people want to start trouble, they usually throw any other group of people out there to go and fight for them their war before they themselves are involved or go out in numbers to fight for the same thing, you know.
Right. And also I was thinking, you know, black Americans obviously are stronger, you know, when it comes to a lot of aspects, and that is something that also has been scientifically proven. You know, they are stronger, and even in sports, there's a lot of sports that they dominate, you know. So I can see why it made perfect sense for them to take the black Buffalo Soldiers to go and deal with the natives and push them out, you know.
Right, but I really would like to hear from African Americans and black Americans, especially
even
those
a Native American,
even a Native American, because I know there is one intermarrying and all, because we've also heard from a black American who's half a black American and half a native, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. We'd really like to hear the story of the Buffalo Soldiers and what was the real issue between the Native Americans and the Buffalo Soldiers.
Obviously, if someone held your people captive for some time and used them as slave, then definitely obviously there's a problem there. But we've also heard about situations where Native Americans and black Americans in some instances collaborated, you know. And I'm saying, what I'm telling myself is both these two groups have faced similar, if not almost the same struggles in the hands of, you know, people who look different from them.
White supremacy, and people who look.
So the question you ask yourself is, who benefits from all these divide and conquer thing, you know, because there was a black American who was alluding to the fact that Beyonce being a public figure, she might be used as a tool of just like any other public figure, because they're very, very influential, and whatever they do, they influence the populace, the people that follow them, you know. And I have to say that to some extent, there's public figures that are normally used to pass agendas, you know. For example, Snoop Dogg was cancelled by his own people, the black Americans, because he decided to go against the very word he was preaching. Exactly. He decided to go against the very word he was preaching, because he used to call out President Trump until he was given a seat at the table. Okay, not a seat at the table per se, but a little benefit that he got from that table that was laid out for people, you know.
Right, and on the topic of celebrity are usually used as a tool of distraction or to pass agendas. I do feel like I do agree with you on that point, because lately what we've been seeing in America, the Latino community with the black community, they've been at it at all. Right. And then right now, Beyonce comes out with this t-shirt, which I did feel like it was just a t-shirt up until we started hearing on the internet what it really meant. So it was also a learning lesson for us, right? But before people started talking about the t-shirt, as we just thought it was a normal regular t-shirt. And then I don't know how many of you guys saw on the internet, there's a lot of things on the internet, right? That when Trump wants to deport Americans, because especially the ones who are committing crime, he wanted the court system to agree for him to deport Americans. They wanted to deport Native Americans, the Indians.
Can you imagine
to
that?
India, guys?
Seriously?
To India. I'm not. Okay, that is what I saw on
that
TikTok.
Needs to be a whole other episode.
First and second, it needs to be verified. So my thinking process is, you see the way Latinos and Black Americans are treated, and they can't, like right now, most of them can't stand up for one another because they still have issues that both communities have hurt each other. You see, I feel like if Beyonce was being used to pass an agenda,
to separate
the natives
from
from the blacks and desensitize black people from the native community plight, so that should there such a time arrive when they need to be deported to India, regardless of...
You've really thought ahead. I didn't see that coming.
So at the end of the day, guys, celebrities are used to pass agendas and to insensitize or sensitize the general masses.
At the same time, I'm happy because right now we have the internet, and these things
people
go beyond and they become discussions online. People can talk about these things.
So guys, let us know what you think about Beyonce's t-shirt, because apparently before this week, and when her concert happened, all of that, as we thought she was just wearing a t-shirt, and the most we could think of it is Bob Marley's song Buffalo. So just up until when people started having a discussion about the t-shirt is when we knew there was a historical meaning behind the word the Buffalo Soldiers.
Right. Anyway, guys, let us know. We'd really like to hear from you.
Right.
One last thing I have to say is, I just want to just make a statement and say, like, who benefits right now? People of color, the black community, really there's no unity in these groups. There's no unity whatsoever. And who benefits from that? There's a reason why right now you find that different groups are conflicting, and this is taking away from the point where if they were united or if they stuck together, they could stand up for each other in anything, and numbers normally are stronger and greater when people have the numbers,
Right.
But if people keep fighting, it means the number is
smaller.
It's smaller, and should something happen to this group would not care. So, and when they're done with this group, then this group will experience something of its own, and they will have to stand up for themselves. You know what I'm saying?
But first, before black Americans start standing up for anybody, those groups should stand up for their own selves, because 100% you cannot keep trying to help a certain community and the certain community is hell-bent on walking down the harmful path that will harm their own people.
Can you say the other groups are getting their wake-up call now, because this is something that being victimized is something that black Americans have had to live,
and other people turned
in America.
Turned the other way because it didn't usually it didn't affect them up until the president who allegedly wants America to be white again, he's been accused of that until he entered the office and people started saying that he only wants people who look like this eventually to dominate in America. So anyway, guys, let us know what you think about this episode. Also consider subscribing if you're new to our channel, and we'll see you on our next episode.